G'day, folks. Hope you're doing all right. It's been a while. It's been a while because we are having all sorts of connection issues where I am currently parked up. And it's weird. Real funny bugger stuff. I've had to come into town to get a internet stream or internet strength strong enough to be able to stream from the phone even. I haven't been able to get Starlink or my Telstra modem to work the way that they are advertised to work in the last 2 nights, which has been challenging to say the least. And it's not just mine. There are 3 other Starlinks being used around me, and all of us having the same connection issues for some reason. It does appear to be better in the morning. And when I say appear, it appears that way. But the reality is when you try and strike up a live stream, or in my case, I was trying to record something, not being able to actually make that connection to StreamYard to actually link up and record. My modem, on the other hand, and I've been on the phone to those bastards that extract money every month called Telstra, who basically said, yeah, have you got one of our modems? And I said, oh, as a matter of fact, I do. And this is the kind of modem that I have for them. You may or may not be able to see that. That's meant to be the duck's nuts of modems from Telstra. The 5G, Ubi-Durgy, I can plug extra aerials in the back end of it and give it all sorts of stuff. Never worked. Never worked as advertised, never worked well at all. And I think I paid something like $700 for that on a plan. And they eventually gave up trying to fix it. They never wound up, they just called the plan off and left me with this useless bit of technology, which gets extremely hot. Its battery life is very, very limited. If you plug it into power and run it, it works okay for about an hour and then turns itself off. Very unimpressed with Telstra's solutions. So I actually have my Telstra SIM card in a different kind of modem. And that modem has worked fabulously well, just about everywhere I've ever been, except for the last 2 nights here, which is quite strange. Now, as many of you are aware, we're hanging out pretty close to a military facility, of which there is live firing and all sorts of stuff going on occasionally. It also has a lot of technology, that facility, around it. And I'm just wondering, I am simply surmising, I'm not saying that this is actually happening, but I usually get pretty good 5G coverage where I'm parked up. But lately I've been noticing, when I've been hearing weapons going off, that my service or coverage drops significantly to a 3G in some cases, in most cases. And I'm wondering whether or not there is a form of technology being employed on the base that might, I don't know, for whatever reason, they're dropping the tower power down that's located on the base. There are a couple of cell towers located on the base, so obviously they have very good communications at that base. So I don't know. I've just noticed the correlation, but it may not be. It might just be a coincidence. But for whatever reason, other people I've heard have been experiencing problems with Telstra as well on the property. There is one other Telstra mobile service like mine being used on the property, and that too has been having severe connection problems. And when I say severe connection, you're actually connecting. You can bring up a web page, but it takes a huge amount of time for it to load. Like in my case, for instance, if I was to bring up a website that isn't cached at all, it could take 30 seconds or more for that website to load. It's like my service has been slowed, but it hasn't been. And there is no reason why. I mean, I thought maybe where I've positioned the Starlink could have been the issue, because it's not back up on top of the bus yet. And that's because I'm going to take the bus out and do a couple more things in it shortly. But the other two Starlink are what you'd call pretty much permanent installations and have been there for quite some time and never been an issue. So it's quite strange. Anyway, enough of my problems regarding connections. Adelaide Royal Show has, oh yeah, similar Wi-Fi. Ah, right, the army base is next door to the showgrounds, of course, yes, and it gets corrupted. So, thanks, Pete. I'm just reading a couple of your notes in here. Raymond Burr. Wow. Threshold moment. Raymond Burr. What a very famous Hollywood name that is. He has or had a magnificent beard from memory and played a wheelchair-ridden lawyer in a show. I can't remember the name of it way back in the day. If I'm honest, that show, and probably one other, which I won't talk about, were responsible for me wanting to initially maybe look at becoming a lawyer. But yeah, Raymond Burr. Wow, thank you for the compliment. Well, I'm not sure if it's a compliment or not coming, but I'll take it as that. Happy for that. G'day, Sab. You've got problems with BitChute at the moment too. Constant buffering. Yep, I'm having the same problem, but I put that down to my connection issues where I'm at. In Wodonga, there's always one tower that's being upgraded. Yeah, and many of us have been getting texts. I've seen, I haven't had them recently, I've got to admit, but I got some while I was away on the last trip. You know, we're upgrading cell phones in your area, cell towers in your area, and you may experience intermittent problems, yeah. I think Telstra is up and down a bit, Scott. I think that they have, they've got a lot going on at the moment in the background, whether or not there is technology upgrades or a shift in technology, or there is I don't know, some sort of fail-safe against the 5G. I don't know. Got to be careful about what they're pumping out of those towers. Hookstagram. Yeah, send me an email. I'd love to have a chat. You work with the cannabis activists. From what I hear, there's every chance that it will be decriminalised across Australia shortly. Starseed's back in. Used to live right near Enoggera Barracks. Obviously watching the show. Yeah, I think you're right about that, Chris. I think there is all sorts of things. Yeah, Ironside, that's the name of that show. Michelle, thank you. That was a bloody great show. Matlock. See, now I preferred Maverick. But, oh, well, what was the other show James Garner was in? The Rockford Files. That was another favourite of mine. Yeah. Thanks, Pete. You want to see? I don't know. I'll probably have to start the car. But yes, if you want to have a look, the car does have a sunroof, and it does go all the way back. So yeah, not a bad sunroof, I guess. It's just a bit bloody cold to use it at the moment, if I'm honest. And I've got a roof rack on the top, so it'll make it very difficult for a shooter to get out there and do a bit of spotlighting. But yeah, and it's all-wheel drive, so you know, I wouldn't say so Jimbo, you've been having connection issues too, right? So it's not just me. Hello, Black Sheep. Nice to see you in too, mate. And Starseed's given his Gene Decode. 172 deep underground military bases in Australia, according to Gene Decode. That wouldn't surprise me one iota. Not one iota. When you think of the different levels of government and the different levels of people required in those different levels of government to perpetrate this act against us, yeah, they need a lot of places to go and hide. Hi, Gay, in Canada, maybe, with a K. Yeah, that's been my hassle with my having a sunroof. I've never had a car with a sunroof before, Gay, and my fear is that we get big hail around here too, and yeah, it's going to be smashed. And I've seen some Hyundai, are they i35s or something like that, that have glass roofs in them, a solid glass roof, and they've been smashed by some of the hail that we've got here in Queensland too. We get softball-sized hail here occasionally, baseball-sized hail fairly regularly, at least during the summer months, and golf ball-sized hail is sort of standard when we get hail in certain parts of southeast Queensland, where I'm at any rate. Thank you, Black Sheep. Yes, thank you for the haircut. I did have to go and have one. It was driving me mad as much as it was driving you guys mad, because I was getting a lot of email about it. So yes, I managed to go and get a professional to do it, because if I'd have done it, I'd have looked like the Black Sheep Sean after having done that. So this looks fractionally better, I hope. G'day, Tim, watching the news from the eastern side of the world. Yeah, there is a fair bit... interesting you should say that. There is a lot happening on the eastern side of the world. The South China Sea is worth watching at the moment. So too, if we're honest, is Cuba. Now, a story came out last week, or early this week, I think, that the Cubans woke up one day and the banks had closed and all their money had been federalized, meaning that if you had money in the bank, you no longer had access to that money. The government was going to use it for its purposes, but don't worry, you'll be recompensed or reimbursed down the track. Bullshit. This also happened to coincide with 8 Russian warships coming to Cuba and associated small islands around that area. 4 of them are docked in Havana. So these are big Russian war-fighting ships. And are we seeing another Bay of Pigs here? Is there something that's, brewing in Cuba? Of course, there is a great hue and cry that the US military have been activated in Miami. So there are a lot of naval bases in Florida. A lot. Big military Navy bases with a lot of aircraft flying from there out to aircraft carriers and whatnot, and various different parts of the states. Now, there's been a few helicopters flying low over beaches. There's been a couple of low passes from C-135s or C-130s, and a couple of other cargo type planes. And now people are saying, oh, look, America is flocking to Miami to prepare for the Russian invasion. So don't think there's going to be much of a Russian invasion, although every one of the ships that's currently moored up in Havana is able to launch long-range missiles, some of which I'm sure could be nuclear tipped. Why are there 8 different vessels floating around Cuba at the moment? It's very interesting indeed. What else is at Cuba? You remember that prison that Joe Biden was going to shut down when he got into power, that hasn't been shut down because Joe Biden's not in power? There's a few interesting things happening in that part of the world. Keep an eye on it. Could this be a way that the deep state are going to try and open another front? Don't think it'll work if that is the case, not unless Putin doesn't have control of his own military forces, and who thinks that? So I wouldn't go getting too concerned about that, except from the fact that there are apparently 2 nuclear submarines and at least another 2 vessels island hopping around the Bermuda area and the Cuba area. So the submarines, I don't imagine, are doing too much island hopping, but that is quite a significant ocean force, bearing in mind that they have their support vessels with them too. Now, what is a support vessel for this sort of stuff? Well, they bring oilers, fueling ships, that kind of thing, and they bring ships big enough to tow their warships home again. You might remember when the world came to visit Australia in Brisbane. We had the G7 summit, or the G20 summit, or whatever it was, and the world came to visit, including Putin. I was driving limos at the time, and the airport was a very fun place to be if you liked aircraft. The Russian aircraft I've got to say, was probably not the best looking one on the ramp, but Putin didn't stay terribly long. But what they did manage to do while he was in town is they had sent their largest battleship from Russia all the way to just off the coast of Brisbane, and then it broke down and had to be towed all the way back to Mother Russia, or to wherever they could get a facility big enough to take it to fix whatever the issue was. Which I still think meant it had to go back to Mother Russia, because there aren't too many people who own those kinds of facilities outside Russia who will take the credit of the Russian government that, oh yeah, we'll pay you, just fix it. So at that time anyway, things might be a bit different now. Keep an eye on Cuba, folks. It's going to be interesting. Now I'm going to have to shoot off. There is a plan for me to do an interview in about 2 hours' time with a gentleman you all know and love. If we can get this connection thing happening, that will happen, and I'll bring that to you tonight. It is a Friday, so I'll try and arrange a few more bodies for a Friday free-for-all, and we'll have a bit of a natter about how pathetic the connection is for, well, Telstra particularly. Starlink, I'm still not prepared to blame Starlink yet. I still think it could be partly my problem, and location. But that is diminishing with the accounts that I'm getting from others on the property who have got Starlink and are finding the same connection problems, which they hadn't had before. So, yeah, no fun at all. Yeah, Gitmo, it's an interesting place located in Cuba. Very interesting place. And it's quite a significant ocean force to be gathered there. If you are unfamiliar with why a significant ocean force gathered there could be significant, go back and check out Real Raw News from around Christmas last year, Christmas and New Year last year, where there is a very detailed story of an attack on Gitmo. So give that a bit of a look if you haven't already done so. So well worth it. G'day, Jack. Yeah, those Antonovs, Jack, they do leave an impression, don't they? I was lucky enough to see one in Melbourne some years ago, and yeah, my God, what a beast of a machine. In fact, I had friends who were working at the Avalon Air Show at the time, and the Antonov was in for that. When it departed, and I wasn't there to see it, this is on video somewhere though, I'm led to believe. You might find it on YouTube. The Avalon Airport is quite a long runway and plenty of space for this big Antonov to get off the ground. It has run the full length of the runway. The video is shot, I believe, from inside the control tower. And this Antonov gets off the ground as it reaches the piano keys at the end of the runway. And it's lifting its wheels as it clears the fence, boundary fence at the end of the runway, just before the bay. That'd be Port Phillip Bay, where an Antonov that size would make quite a large splash if they get that all wrong. It only just got off the ground. It was carrying so much weight. It's one of the wildest takeoffs I've ever seen in a large aircraft. So yeah, it's a few years ago down at Avalon. Your Starlink's working okay, Bradford? All right, well, now you're just bragging. It's quite interesting to see how how different the service changes with Starlink. Where I'm currently located compared to where I was geographically previously, I am about, call it 30 kilometres, maybe more, west of where I was prior. Prior to this, I was pretty much located on the coast, but my dish was always looking out off the coast. Very rarely was it directly overhead. I've not seen the dish out here be overhead at all. It is continually looking to the east. So, so my guess is that the Starlink satellite chains are running more a coastal than an inland pattern, particularly where I'm situated at the moment. But once again, it's very difficult to find out too much information about all of this and position yourself. The only thing you can really do is give yourself the most amount of horizon possible, and I can tell you, when you're living in a forest, that's bloody difficult if you don't have a pole that goes up a couple of 100 metres to get above the gum trees, because they are friggin' huge. Yeah, Pete, that would have been interesting. An Antonov coming in over your firework preps for Adelaide's big fireworks show. Bringing in Holden steel. God, those were the days back when we had a car manufacturer still working here in Australia. Unbelievable. Oh, I saw a heap of Antonovs back in 03, and yeah, well, I imagine they were bringing a lot of stuff in into Kuwait back then. All right, folks, I'm going to shoot off, get back hopefully in time for this interview, and fingers crossed we'll get that out. It'll be one you will enjoy. He's an old friend of the show. He hadn't been on in a while, so we'll get him on for a bit of a chat about some weird and wonderful things, and then who knows who'll turn up tonight. I'm sure the larrikins will stick their hand up if I can ask them, and we'll get them in for a bit of a chat, and whoever else I can dig up. Vince may well be around. He's had a bit of a week, Vince. Just want to let him rest a little bit, so we'll just see how that goes, but I'll talk to him today and see how he feels. And there may well be a couple of others. I'll try and get a couple of ladies involved. It gets a bit bloke heavy otherwise, doesn't it? So that'll all come up a little bit later on. I may even revert to putting the Starlink back up on the bus and seeing if that makes a difference. But we shall see what happens. All will be good. All right, have a good Friday, folks, and look out for yourselves if you're on the roads. I had to do a bit of travelling into Brisbane and back yesterday, and only came across 2 dickheads, so the average is, well, about the same, if I'm honest.